Hi there.
Hey.
I don't know if you're ready.
Oh, I'm always ready.
It is always ready. But that's not what I was gonna say. We did one video where we talked about one of the 2 times the police failed me. And so I was thinking we could tell everybody about the other time. But I feel like it's hard for you
to talk
sit.
About.
Yeah.
It's the like second time is really hard for me because there was a lot of stuff. Her girls were with their ex and his, whatever she is, and her son was with her. And I get that they're all grown. Or I say grown, they were late teenagers, right?
Yeah.
I knew that there was stuff going back and forth and happening, and I'd always told her to, anything happens, that no matter what time it is, you call me, okay? Somehow or another, that night, when I got to my house, I accidentally left my phone in the truck. I don't do that. I mean, it was
you and there was another guy that we were both really close friends with, yeah. And you both had seen, like, y'all were my friends throughout my divorce, and you guys had really seen me go through a lot of crap and a lot of stalking and stuff like that. And so I'd had like that. You guys were trying to look out for me.
Yeah. And that night, nobody was there. I mean, I got up the next morning when I was getting ready to go to work, and I was looking around for my phone and stuff, because I always left take my hat off, put my wallet and stuff right there, and I was like, well, what do I do with my phone? So I run out in my truck, and I've got like, God, I don't know how many missed calls, right?
Yeah.
And
so let's back up. Let's explain what happened. So, this was after my divorce. My kids were teenagers, and my kids are close in age. They're 17 months apart. I've got a son who's older and then twin girls. And my ex had really manipulated my girls and basically withdrew them from school, took them out of my home and everything. And it took me a little bit when you're going through something like that, and you feel like you need an attorney. So I went to attorneys, and it was going to be like $5,000 to even start the case, but he wasn't helping me with anything. And I had negotiated a much lower child support with him because I stupidly thought that we were going to be better friends apart than we were a married couple. And I wanted him to be able to stand on his feet as well. So I agreed with the smallest amount that I could get by with to take care of the kids. And something flipped. Anyways, so what this is called, I did not know this had a name, but it's called parental alienation. And if you are wrongfully being kept from your children, or one of their parents is mentally manipulating them it's abuse. And it took this situation for me to realize that. So I had legal custody of them, so I went and got the police involved and brought them back home. The problem is teenagers. And, you know, they had been really turned against me. So, well, fast forward to, like, there was some court-appointed therapy or something. And the therapist was like, this is some of the worst manipulation and abuse I've ever seen. And one of them skipping out on it and going home with a boyfriend instead of going to the session. And the therapist reported it to the court. And because the boyfriend was of age, he was arrested for interference of child custody. That caused a ricochet effect of lots of anger and emotions. So, my ex
took advantage of it.
He did. He lived in a different county. He came to the county that I was living in, which is Hall County, Georgia, and I want them to know that they messed up. But they know they messed up. So, came to my house where my son and I were there, brought the girls, came in my home, took my phone so that I could not call 911, and put his hands on me, backed me against the wall. I get around him and I run across the road to my neighbor's house to see if he would call 911. My son was in his room, but he had his door shut, so I didn't think he knew what was going on. And I was trying to not involve him. And as I was going across the road, the girlfriend at the time gets out of the car and starts yelling. And I'm probably a good 3 to 5 feet from her. I had my keys in my hand, my car keys, and I pointed at her and I was like, you stay out of it. But I could not reach her, the distance between us. When the police came, everyone with him told them that I actually hit her. They didn't want to hear anything I had to say. They didn't want to hear anything my son had to say. The neighbors didn't want to get involved. The officer locked me up and took me to jail. And I was like, what in the world is going on here?
So how screwed up is it? Okay. They come onto her property. They come into her house.
Mm-hmm.
And Hall County locks her up for supposedly pushing or hitting the girlfriend.
Yeah, and so what happened is they we've got a child that had dental surgery. So what happens is, and this is why I told you the story about the boyfriend. I get to the jail and they're booking me, and lo and behold, who do I walk in and see getting booked also? The boyfriend, who thinks that I called the cops on him, that I had him arrested, but it was the court-appointed therapist that did it. And so my son rallied and called a bunch of people and got a hold of a friend of mine who lived about an hour away and got in her car at like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning and came and got me. And she has honestly been a guardian angel ever since.
Yeah, so
she really has.
My point on the getting arrested though. So she went through hell.
A couple of weeks go by, and I'm like, okay, I've got to get an attorney. I have to fight this. What if I go to jail? What's going to happen to my son? Is he going to be stuck with this person and all this stuff. So a couple weeks go by, I go to the police department and I was like, I don't know what you call the person in charge, but that's who I need to talk to. And so I went in and I talked to him, and he took all of the information and everything, and he said, all right. He said, the police officers have recorders on them. So we will review that. I'll pull all the information, review that, and then I will follow back up with you. And then he says, but I have a question. How long were you in this abusive relationship? How long was it abusive? And I said, oh, he didn't hit me. He said, you realize that abuse is not always bruises and cuts. He said he was in domestic violence unit for 20 plus years. And there were things about the way that I communicated with him and carried myself and eye contact and all these things that he recognized. And so the next thing you know, I'm like going through what this relationship was like, right? And he said, well, I would assume that it was a whole lot of what just happened tonight. And I said, well, yeah, there's a lot of manhandling and belittling and stuff like that. And so I leave and it was about a week later, he called me back and asked me to come up to their office. I came in his office and he said, I want to apologize to you. We failed you. Somebody from another county came into our county on your property, in your home, put their hands on you, prevented you from calling 911, and we failed you. And I want to apologize to you because it was a new officer, and that does not excuse it, but it is part of why it probably happened. I was like, okay, so what's next? He said, well, I'm going to go to the DA. So he goes to the DA. They won't drop it unless I go to domestic violence counseling at a domestic violence center here. And at that point, I'd have done whatever they told me I needed to do, but I honestly really didn't see the need. And they told me, he said, well, statistically, you would end up in a relationship like that again. And I said, well, let me tell you about statistics in my life. Because statistics don't apply to my life. But I went, and for several weeks, it was like one-on-one with the counselor. And then we went into a group. So there's like maybe 6 other women in this group. And we were from all different walks of life. But we almost all had the same story.
So that's how I feel about it. And Hall County, your apology, for me, she may accept it. I don't. You screwed up. She went to the counseling, but when you said you were sorry, we screwed up, then everything should have stopped right there. Counseling helped her. Okay, good. It's a good thing. But you were not going to drop the case unless she went. Okay, that was meaning that your apology didn't mean shit. Secondly, she had to pay a good amount of money, like to get out of jail and stuff like that. You should be paying her back. In my opinion, you still owe her Hall County, Georgia Sheriff's Department. Okay.
Yeah, and I won't say that
I'm still pissed off about it because it's wrong.
So the apology, no, I don't think that I feel the way that you think I do about it. I was grateful for the apology, and I did benefit from the counseling. And to be completely honest with you, had they recommended the counseling and dropped it anyways, I still would have went.
So yeah, that's a different story.
Because I was at a point where I was recognizing the abuse and all of the abuse that my daughters were going through with him. And I was seeking help in different ways anyways. My issue is that that's twice in 2 different counties that the police failed me in an abusive relationship and made it worse both times in 2 different ways. I don't trust law enforcement to help me if I needed help. I was like my grandmother used to say, fool me once,
Right.
and shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. That was twice that law enforcement screwed me over. And so even though there was an apology, I still lived in fear for quite a long time because I didn't trust that if they came back on my property or something happened, that it would be handled in a way that I would be safe.
So you still had all the information, all the recording, you had all that stuff. That's when you should have went after the person you should have went after. Correct?
Yeah, they didn't pursue any charges against him, and multiple laws were broken.
Yeah. So,
and he was a licensed private investigator in the state of Georgia.
What's to me, I'll get off the law enforcement kick because I got a lot of friends that's been in law enforcement and relatives, and nothing against that. It's just this particular situation.
Yeah.
You screwed up. You had a chance to fix it, but you didn't. Here, to me, is what's so sad and shows how manipulative this type of person can be.
Yes.
So he took his 2 children into a house and he put his hands on this lady and he done this and he done that. And so, and even more sad is that your girlfriend, now your wife, was helping you do this to your ex-wife, and you wasn't smart enough to see how obsessed he was with her.
I've never been able to wrap my mind around that.
It's bad. I mean, you know, and
trust me, it's not when he says
if he'll do this in front of you to his ex, what makes you think he's not going to do that to you?
Right. And
in front of his kids also.
It's when he says obsessed, some people might find that flattering. It's not. It's sickening. It's absolutely sickening, and it makes your skin crawl. So not too long after that, he ended up taking the girls, and I had no contact with them for about 2 years. I gave over custody after this happened because I could not continue putting myself through it. And it took a lot of therapists to explain, to get me to understand that I had to let go. And it was hard. It was really hard, and it almost brought me to an end, to be honest. But at that time, some things changed with my job, and I had to start traveling for work. And so that came at a time in my life that I kind of needed it, because it made me feel safer to know that I was constantly moving and they didn't know where I was. And anytime when I would come home on the weekends and stuff, I would, if I saw any friends and they would take pictures together or anything, I would make sure they knew they couldn't post them until I went back out of town. And it's so sad to me that I had to live that way, and all of them understood. But, I mean, let us know have you been in a situation like this? And has the police been helpful to you? Because I know several other people that have been in abusive relationships that were very physical, and the police still, like, you watch TV and you know things aren't really that way. And I thought they were supposed to remove one of the two people from the home. But I know for a fact in this county, a couple that were like, where one of them was physically being attacked and they didn't remove on multiple occasions. So I don't know.
I don't know
Help
what the
me out.
laws are. Yeah. And I don't want to sound like we're hating on law enforcement, because
No.
we depend on them, right? It's just a couple occasions that
I don't know. I feel like more training needs to be in. Something needs to change with regard to domestic violence. The recognition of it, the handling of it, and providing that support to the people that are in those situations. And I'm just gonna ask you a question before we close out on this subject. I do speak out a lot about abuse and empowering people who have been in those situations, because there was a time in my life where I felt like happy just was not in the cards for me. And we do heal, and we do find happiness, and we are not destined to live miserably for the rest of our life. And happiness is not just in movies. As a guy, I get a lot of comments on when I make like reels or shorts. It'll be guys commenting that have an issue with me speaking out about escaping that abuse.
So my personal opinion is, if you got somebody that's speaking out against it, they're probably the person that's doing it.
Wait, me?
No.
Somebody that has an issue with
somebody that has an issue with what you're saying, and you're speaking the truth, and it offends them, they're probably guilty of being that person you're talking about.
Okay, so that was my question. I was curious from a man's point of view if that's what it was, because in my mind, that's the way I see it. And I don't want to be that person that because I lived abuse, I see abuse everywhere. But so yeah, that's how I see it too, is that if somebody seriously has an issue, look, generally people, if I see something that I don't necessarily agree with on the internet, you know what that finger does on your phone? It scrolls. I scroll past it. I'm not on here to break people down. But if you attack me, I am going to clap back. But that is what I think when I see it. And so I was just curious about that. Anyways, I'm going to drop the National Domestic Violence Hotline number on here. You can actually, if you go to their website, you can actually text them too, which is awesome. So, again, drop some comments. Let us know what your experience has been. And for all of you that are there, that are planning your out, you'll get there. You can get out and you can be happy.
Yeah.
And it is worth every sacrifice you have to make to get there.
Yeah, it's easier said than done, but you can do it.
All right. Thank you, guys. Y'all have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.